Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Welcome to the Perfect Life Awakening Show, hosted by Royce Morales. Royce has been a transformational facilitator, teaching groundbreaking, spiritually based courses for more than 4 decades. She is the author of 3 books about her teachings. Join Royce as she takes you on a journey into how to live your best life and find your true purpose through discovering the origins of subconscious, disempowering notions and releasing them. She talks with experts and inspiring people just like you who learned to trust their intuitive inner wisdom, which led to life-changing shifts. Today, her guests live an empowered existence and are helping change the world to a higher consciousness place based on truth and love. You deserve to awaken to, align with, and embody your true self and live a life filled with love. Transform yourself from triggered to empowered and create your perfect life. Here is your host, Royce Morales.
Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad that you're here. And as always, I am thrilled and excited to have the honor of talking to my guest today. And before I even introduce her, I want to just tell you a little bit about her story. I call this episode a shattered life paused and reclaimed, but that's only a part of Beverley Gilmour's miraculous story. In 1992, Beverley became a victim of violent crime, and she survived, but she suffered traumatic brain injury that led to over 30 years of extended states of altered consciousness. And she's going to talk about that because it's amazing. Excuse me, her heartbeat would stop, her consciousness would separate from her body, resulting in a flatlined state that is referred to as actual death experiences. These are different than near-death experiences, and she's going to explain that too. But she chose love and commitment to her children, as well as her desire to tell people about what ADEs, which are actual death experiences. She wanted to find out more about that, and she wanted to tell the world about that. So she did a lot of research on that. And for 33 years, her life was on pause. But then, due to some interesting experiences, she became a children's book author. She earned her BA in film and television and a master's in publishing. I don't think they have any of that out here in the States. She's in Britain, by the way. And she began her study of human consciousness based on what she was going through. And it's quite extraordinary and inspiring what happened from all of this. And what I see happening is that she shifted her life from being a victim into being an inspiring, amazing, healed person. So welcome, Beverley. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Yes. And just for full disclosure, Beverley and I connected because I have been trying to publish a young adults or middle grade book series that I've written. And as always in my life, she landed in my lap, and now she's going to be publishing my book. So very exciting to have you here. So tell us your story. Basically, what happened in 1992, this night that shifted your life in all kinds of ways. Tell us what happened.
Well, I think to sort of like set the scene for the listener, basically we need to go back a few years to 1987, because it was in 1987 when the actual death experiences first started. Mm-hmm. And they were spontaneous, but they were very few, and they were like, I would have one every 7 to 8 months. So The difference between the years is that from 1987 up until 1992, I would have an experience, and I would basically, apart from having slight light sensitivity, I was still able to have normal sleep. I was still able to have a normal life. I think I felt like I'll be honest with you, I was very frightened of the experiences, because at the beginning I did not know what was happening to me. I thought it was just deep sleep and dreaming. And then as they progressed, because I went further and further and further and crossed over to the afterlife. And the one person who I kept meeting was Jesus. And I had a relationship with Jesus from being a young child. And at first, I did not know who he was. And then instantly, how can I put this? I knew who he was, but I wasn't sure. I was like, could this really be Jesus? And I was getting spiritual energy back to me saying, why are you asking such a question? Do you not know? And of course he was like, yeah, I do know, but really, is it? And it's like, next minute, as soon as he actually allowed me to see his face, I just fell to my knees. And it was just the most incredible experience, because I said, and I was being guided to be extremely respectful of him and of his presence. And he said to me, I uttered the words, and by the way, we don't use verbal words in the afterlife, it's all through thought. And I said the words, are you my Lord Jesus? And I was, on my knees. And he replied, why do you ask, child? Do you not know? So it was like, okay. Right. And then he placed what can be described as a wooden cross over my neck in the form of like a necklace, but the cross was extremely large. So if you can imagine that I'm on my knees and this cross came, he put this cross over my neck, and the cross reached the bottom. And he spoke the words, do not be afraid, child, for you shall always be protected. And then he just disappeared back into the clouds. And I came back, and I was like, whoa. But I'll be honest, I said I trusted him. I said all these things in my physical life, but trust is an enormous emotion. And sometimes we think we do these things, we think we trust, but when we're put to the test, it's a different story. Because I was afraid. I was afraid because I acknowledged the fact that I was dying, and I didn't want to die. I wanted to live. I wanted to be a mother. I wanted to be a wife. I wanted to, have a life. And those first few experiences, he took me to meet my father, who passed away in 1982. And I remember thinking, in between the times, can I go and meet my dad again? In prayer, in sort of like when I was going to bed at night and I was talking to Jesus, as in from a physical sense. I'd say, can I go and meet my dad again tonight? And I really, really want to. It wasn't about what I wanted. I actually only met my dad in the entire 33 years about 4 times. But even meeting him once was amazing, because I knew he was safe, and I knew he was alive. I knew he was living. So those first few ones, as in those first few years, the only thing I was writing down, because Jesus took me to meet my father, he took me to meet my grandma, And in those encounters, I didn't realize that what was happening was he was teaching my higher consciousness. He was teaching my spiritual mind about the afterlife, about his love, and explaining about we are all creation from God, and we are all energy of love. That is what we are as a human beings. We are love. So when I was regaining consciousness from them and then just living my everyday life, I wasn't really writing anything down. The only thing I was doing was writing down about the snow mites, about what I saw, and I was transferring what I saw in the afterlife into these children's books. Because one of the mentors that Jesus took me to meet was the spirit of Walt Disney, and that was so fascinating. And Jesus explained that, and I understand this because I wasn't reading the Bible or anything like that, because, you know, I was just me, yeah. And he said, there are many kingdoms in my Father's kingdom. So I was allowed to see this afterlife of Walt Disney, and that was amazing. And he would show me things, and when I came back, I'd write them down. I'd write this story down. He was telling me these stories, fantasy stories, you know, for children. So that was all I was doing in them years. And I kept thinking, why am I having them? What are you saying to me? And I had no idea, because in your physical body, I wasn't able to access the higher consciousness. Yeah. And I just remember one thinking, oh, well, I'm sure you'll explain to me properly one day. I'm sure I'll find out. And I just carried on with life, being a mother, being a wife, writing the stories and things like that. Now, in 1992, where everything changes, and this is where we start to understand the actual death experiences. After the crime, after the brain, when the brain injury occurred, what happened to me is my consciousness split in my physical life. So I'm now walking around with my higher consciousness as my primary consciousness. And my normal consciousness, which is what we're using now, was damaged beyond repair. It was just so damaged, it couldn't function. So because my higher consciousness had became my primary consciousness, I was picking up on everybody's energy, I was picking up on their thoughts, I was mirror imaging them. And the power of the higher consciousness is 1 billion times more than what we understand it to be. And it's located on the front lobe here in the head. And the reason I say that is because the activation itself, it being primary, caused what you call a horrendous, loud, high-pitched noise. It was like when I went into a room with a radio, all of a sudden, I couldn't be anywhere where there was like a radio playing. I couldn't be anywhere where there was light. I couldn't shut down. I just couldn't shut down, so I couldn't sleep. And I actually haven't had a natural sleep for 33 years. So it is quite, you know, and I still get this. And one of the things, because it's so powerful, it's like it caused what you would say the effects of like a burning brain. And I would feel it shift across the head and then flow down. And it would always flow down the back of the head on the left-hand side, and then shift across to the back of the right-hand side, and then shift back up to the front. So this was the healing it was trying to do to the brain, this heat, so to speak. So obviously I didn't know it was healing me. I didn't understand, because in my physical life, I couldn't even say who I was. I couldn't even talk to people. I couldn't say, my name is Beverley. The pressure would cause me to go unconscious. And again, it was healing why I was unconscious. And things like you couldn't touch my head. You couldn't come anywhere near with your hand or anything like that if you tried to put your hand anywhere near, because the electricity from you, just too much for me to physically bear. I would often go into vegetation states where I would just sit and I couldn't communicate. I couldn't speak, you see. So it was horrendous. It was awful, because I was like I was trapped inside myself, and I couldn't function. And the only time that I was able to function was in the presence of my children. And that's quite interesting, because what I understood the reason for that is because my love and my maternal bond and my children's love was all connected to this higher consciousness, which is our love, which is our spiritual mind, which is the part of our consciousness that transfers away. It separates in death, and it carries on into the afterlife. And then we're given a spiritual body. So that's basically how it is. And the actual death experiences, they were absolutely horrendous, because whereas prior to it, I was only having one every few months, I started to have an actual death experience because of the unconsciousness 2-3 times a week. So I was just unable to function properly unless it was around the children. And then I wasn't able to, what's the word? I was present with them, if you understand what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And what I also started to do was this writing. I would have an actual death experience. I would see what I was supposed to see. I would come back, and eventually, because after an actual death experience, you can't just sit up, when you regain consciousness. You can't just jump out of bed like you can when you wake up, from a sleep. You can sort of like stretch or yawn, or, sort of like, oh, okay, and then get up out of bed. When you have an actual death experience and you first connect back to your consciousness, you basically, it's like I would tell my arm to move, and at first it wouldn't move, and I'd have to keep repeating the instruction for my arm to move or my leg to move until it all settled back down and reconnected, and then I was able to move. So there was moments like that. And one of the things I found myself doing was going into this sort of like conscious state and writing. And what I was writing, which eventually I'm going to publish on tape, was my higher consciousness was telling me who I was. It's called Who Am I? I am Beverley. And I might cry, so please don't, because it's all about love. And the love that we have inside us is just beyond words. Because it is so priceless. It is so perfect. It is God's love. It is the most incredible power. And it's so beautiful. And here, my higher consciousness, all my love from my years before the brain injury, and everything who I was as a person, she was there, and she was saying, "Remember me." And what when I say she, please don't get confused. It was me, okay? I'm not got psychosis or anything. It was me, yeah. But my spiritual mind, my spiritual self, yeah, my love, so to speak, was so determined to bring me back. And it was these writings, and it was all about writing about memories I'd had in, the past. It was about reminding me about the love that I felt in the past, how people loved me, how I loved people, all about my children's love. There was just pages, pages, pages. And I would write these I called them letters, but they weren't letters because I can remember one. I was in a trance and one of them was like 300 pages. So, I wouldn't like to receive that as a letter. I was,
Wow.
Dear Jack, you'll be sitting here for a few weeks on this letter. But what it was happening as well in these writings was all the knowledge and the teachings that Jesus had given me in the actual death experiences from 87 to 92 about his love, about God's love, about this love that we have, that we've been given. That was coming through in the writings as well. So it was incredible. And even though it was painful, because it was painful and it was frightening, I was very frightened, this higher consciousness didn't give up on me. It was like, no, we're going to get you there. Because it knew the future. I didn't. I was like, why is this happening? I'm crying and I'm in so much pain and all this stuff. But this higher consciousness was just, reinforcing over and over and over again. And understanding that higher consciousness is basically how you and I now can evolve and how we can free ourselves of our emotional triggers, addiction, how we can prepare ourselves for basically how our consciousness can evolve so we can prepare ourselves for our eternity, how we can actually transfer that love to each other so that we are united in this spiritual energy. And it's just beyond, it would probably take us several hours to actually go into real detail about the power of it, because I can remember one ADE where I found myself, and this kind of like explains this power of love that this spiritual energy is. And I found myself in what you would call the deepest, furthest of outer space, the universe. There was stuff, it was space. And I can remember I was like just present. I was just there. My spirit was there. And I felt God. And I actually felt overwhelmed by his pure energy, his existence beyond what we could probably talk about. It was just 1 billion times more than what we know love to be. It just filled me. And I can remember having the thoughts, this is worth fighting for. Now that might sound like a negativity against spiritual energy, because we know we shouldn't fight. But what it was is, what I was saying is, this is my place in the universe. This is worth fighting for. And what I was actually saying was, this is worth fighting my demons for. My negativity, my flaws, my shortcomings. I want to be of this love in my eternity. And I will, in my life, walk the path, consciously aware that I have work to do every day. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It sounds like what people strive for in their spiritual journey, and you got there a different way than those of us that are just doing it through meditation and all those other things. You really got there.
But the beauty of this is it's real. Everything you work for, everyone who gives these spiritual sort of like chats and teachings. It's real.
Yeah.
It exists, and it is worth fighting for.
Yeah.
It is worth you waking up tomorrow morning and saying, right, if I meet someone today and they start talking bad of someone, gossip, just something consciously we probably wouldn't even think about. We just might engage in it. Oh yeah, that person's bad, isn't it? Oh yeah. Stop. And say to yourself, no, I'm not going to judge that person. That person has not done me any harm. I'm going to step away from this negative energy of this gossip, and I'm just going to reflect love onto it. And it's things like that every single day. When you look in the mirror in the morning, you have to see that you are of this love, you are of this higher consciousness, and you have to say, I love myself. And it's not as an ego trip. It's not vanity. It's, I love my spirit. I love my energy. I love myself. I love who I am. I love my life. And by doing that every day, you will start to project that energy out. Because one of the interesting things, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners know about this already, when people have an actual death experience, aka near-death experience, they always say, when I passed over into the afterlife and I went through the light and I encountered spirit, I was aware of this amazing love. 9 times out of 10, a person who has an experience feels the love in the afterlife. What I have learned is that we are that love. And if we feel it in the afterlife and it's in our spirit and we're feeling it, when we return to our physical body, it's still there. We just need to learn to unlock it and project it out to everyone around us in our environment. And that is how I have learned through the writings that our consciousness, our higher consciousness, it will evolve, it will open, it will create an awakening, and there will be this surge of positive energy if we start learning that now. And that's quite incredible, because that just blows your mind, doesn't it?
Yes.
And I just like sit there going, okay, okay.
Well, for those people that haven't had near-death or actual death experiences, are there ways that either you have been given through all of your conscious explorations, are there ways for people to get there? I mean, I know I have my way and other people have their ways, but what do you recommend for somebody to really get to that place of higher consciousness?
Meditation. Absolutely. Meditate, and meditate on light. Meditate on peace. Meditate on yourself, on your growth, and just evolve inside yourself. And you will find that as you create that positive energy, your higher consciousness will start awakening. And the more it will awaken naturally, unlike what happened to me, mine was, it just went and split. If you nurture it through meditation, through prayer, you will start to awaken it inside yourself. And you will start to actually see life differently. You will see beauty. You will see incredible transformations. Whereas before you might have seen a problem, you will see a solution to that problem. And that is basically the way forward for us to take control now, start meditating, and start being responsible for who we are as people, and start consciously opening our higher consciousness so that we can evolve with each other in this life. Yeah.
So, as usual, I have a million questions, but so everything that's going on in the world right now, I know that maybe it's not as bad over where you live, but here we're going through some really big challenges politically, environmentally, and all that stuff. I understand that there's always a bigger picture, even what you just shared. You had to go through something horrendous to really wake you up and to get you connected. What is your sense of why, on a planetary level, we're going through all of this stuff? Do you have any thoughts about that?
One of the things that I know is crucial to our existence is our environment. Because if we, in this higher consciousness state, we not only will experience love, God's love in our presence, in our physical lives, but we'll also experience the love for creation. And you start seeing, it's like, okay, this might sound a silly story, so bear with me. But all of a sudden, I was able to see a basic brick wall, and I saw beauty in that brick wall. And it was just a basic brick wall, Some people would say, really? you saw beauty in a brick wall? That's quite crazy. And it wasn't. It was because what I was able to see behind the brick wall was that someone had built it. Someone had come along, created it. It didn't exist at one time, and now it existed. And it was through their skills, their hard work. And as a result of that, they were probably paid. Right? And then that money that they were paid probably then went for food or, or their house or their shelter and fed their children. So can you see where the beauty in that brick wall now, sort of like all of a sudden, it's not just a dull grey brick wall, it's actually life. This brick wall's life. And that's what I mean. It's very powerful.
Yeah. It's shifting your perception.
That's exactly. You start appreciating everything. You start understanding about how important our environment is, because animals, gardens, trees, the planet itself, it's a creation. And this higher consciousness is a creation. So you start connecting with everything.
Yeah, it's the connection.
Yeah, you stop fighting your own demons, and your own demons such as greed, selfishness, sort of like anger. You stop experiencing those things, and when those things are sort of like presented into your life, you're able to address them in a calm, positive way, so that you're able to like walk past it, walk above it. You're able to lift yourself above it, so you see the anger or the whatever it is, the bad, the negative emotion. You see it for what it really is, and really it's not. Like, for instance, you miss a bus, you're going to be late for work. You're full of anger, frustration, anxiety. Everyone's going to go, oh, you're late. Don't think like that. A bus is going to come along after that. You're going to get onto it. You're going to get to work and you're going to say, I missed the bus. There you go. And people sort of like say, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing that. You can, you can either acknowledge that maybe you're missing too many buses, and maybe the timetable needs your attention so that you get there early, but you solve the problem, if you get what I mean. And one of the things about the higher consciousness, which is really interesting, especially with you, is it can mirror other people.
Yes.
And this is part of the story. So it's quite interesting because my personality before the brain injury is I was a bit bubbly, I'm a scouser, I'm like, having a laugh, that kind of personality. I wasn't a serious person. I was just sort of, go with the flow kind of person, if you know what I mean. And these writings ended up becoming evidence in a court of law.
Oh, wow.
Part of the healing. And I don't mean just a small court of law. It ended up in the High Court of London. So it was like the real big court of law, you know what I mean? And I don't know if you want me to tell you the story, but this is an example of mirroring, if you do.
You know what? Hold that thought, because we need to take a break, and we'll be right back, and you will tell that story and all the details.
It's a funny story.
Stay with us.
Om Times TV. Do you crave joy but feel stuck? Do you go through life feeling constantly triggered and frustrated? Fear is likely the culprit, and subconscious fear is likely sabotaging you. Perfect Life Awakening is a time-tested, spiritually based approach to inner transformation created by Royce Morales. For over 40 years, she has helped people get to the origins of subconscious fears and ultimately help them find their true purpose and a life full of joy. Sign up for Perfect Life Awakening today at roycemorales.com. You deserve to go from triggered to empowered, shifting your life with Perfect Life Awakening. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back. We're right in the middle of telling an amazing story. So finish your story, Beverley. I love that.
I like the advert. It's beautiful. Feeding America. That's absolutely beautiful. That is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Imagine if we all took part in that. Imagine what we could do as a collective spiritual energy. I know. Okay, so I find it a funny story. Some people won't, but I found it funny. So you basically know the physical Beverley, the one that was walking around when I could walk around, didn't know anything what was going on, didn't understand anything really. I always felt I was 10 steps behind myself. because my higher consciousness was that primary consciousness. And all these writings ended up, and something was triggered. And what it was like during when I was supposed to be getting looked after for the brain injury, you know, things weren't done properly by medical professors. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that, but you know, so it came up that to sue them. Sue them in a court of law. Yeah. And it was like, I was under the impression that all these writings were my evidence, you know, of what happened to me. So I wanted to put them forward. And of course, when solicitors, you call them lawyers, but we call them solicitors. When solicitors saw the evidence I wanted to put into the court, they were like, no, we're not doing this, you know. This is like spiritual writings. This is very elaborate style of writing, you know. And we're talking about thousands and thousands of pages. So they were like, no, we're not taking this case on. So I'm like, and what ended up happening is, because of the higher conscious, I became my own lawyer. I became my own solicitor.
Wow. And
me didn't know anything about law, but this higher consciousness knew everything about law, you know. I mean, yeah. And I'm like, you know, and I ended up going into the courtroom, and the very first one was just the judge, and okay, so that we're not getting confused, it was basically the health authority. So it's just their lawyer and their barrister. And I ended up going into court on that one. And there was a hearing, you know, and you have to speak. And then they speak. And the judge decided that there was a case to answer. Because when I was speaking, it wasn't me speaking, it was this higher consciousness. And boy, can it deliver a good speech. It's like, you know, full of confidence, you know, if they, you know, project, you know, and all this, or project one's voice out, you know, show them you mean business, yeah. And this is one of my flaws, because I was very bossy. So my higher consciousness was very bossy, yeah. So that was quite good. Anyway, the next thing that happened was, this was just in a very low court, and the next thing happened is I wanted to take action. I wanted to sue the health authority as well. So this is the local council and now the health authority. And I went to another judge, and he recognized me, and he said, okay, this is another case. Have you thought of joining these cases together? So this higher consciousness was like, well, that's what I'm going to do. So these two cases were then joined together. And the council authority, you have to have leave of court to sue them. So they were trying to throw the case out. And what was happening is this higher consciousness was transferring their thoughts to me. It was in a sort of entity where I knew they weren't my thoughts, you know, and I was picking up on what they were going to do to try and throw this case out. So I would go away and then do something in this case that counteracted them. So then when we went back to court, they were like, you know, I present my new sort of like part of the case, and they were like, what? How is she doing that? What? And I would be sitting there, you know, and all I would be doing is like sitting there playing with my hearing aid, you know. I was like, what's going on here? Because by this time we had about 4 barristers, 4 solicitors, and it's just me sitting there going. And I was ending up, I was suing them for 20 million as well. And they were all over the place. And I had all these cases, all these evidence, and they had little pieces of paper. And they did not realize this, that they were on higher consciousness. they were telling me how to sue them. And it was astonishing. And at the High Courts, I can remember I was standing there and I thought, okay, why am I here and all this? Like, it was all this, these really big old barristers and all this posh, and everything. And I can remember feeling so out of my depth. I was like this little, scouser in this really high court. I was like, oh, this woman came, and I always remember she came marching over, and she was a barrister, and she had about 8 sort of like legal, solicitors with her. And I can remember her gown flowing because she was striding so powerful towards me. She was like this force to be reckoned with. And she got up to me, she had the case, and she just said, what was it? She actually said to me, she said, hello, she was like Margaret Thatcher. I don't know if you remember her. That's she reminds me of really, and all I heard was this. What happened is the higher consciousness suddenly, because what would sometimes happen is it would take away all hearing, so I'd hear nothing, and that's when I knew it was about to speak, because it would just go, woo, and I'll not hear anything, and all I heard here is, let her go first. That was it. So I'm standing there, smiling away, going, and I went, you can go first. And she started laughing at me. And she was laughing because apparently there's some old saying that whoever goes first in a court of law, the presentation is sort of more chance of winning, because they strike the case, they laid the foundation for the case. Yeah. So she started laughing at me because it was my case, and by rights I should have gone first. Huh. Yeah. So we all walk into this massive courtroom and everything, and I'm sitting there, and we stand. In walks this judge, and I've never seen one like him before, and he had this really long wig on, right down to his knees, and we all stand up, and he comes in, he sits down, and we all sit down, and then she stands up, and she makes this big sigh, and she goes, my lord. And I just sat there and went, oh, thank God, I know what to call him now. I didn't know how to address him. And I went, okay. So she went, and then I stood up and I went, my lord. And then I basically, from what she was transferring over to me, that became my presentation. And they all sitting there going, where's she getting this from? How is she doing this? Wow. And I won the cases, because that's just, it was obvious. I won the cases. So wow. It's quite funny because I've never told them that they were actually teaching me how to sue them. I've never told them that the transfer of knowledge was from them. I didn't know anything about law, so they were very, very kind.
That is amazing. So we only have a few more minutes, and I want you to tell us about what you call your soul project. Tell us about that.
Okay, the Soul Project is a scientific observation of human consciousness. And what it is, what I'd like to do is, as you know, I'm looking to do my PhD in exploring, basically it's to discover what the human consciousness is capable of, what the existence of it through the actual death experiences which I've had. So what I'd like to do is, what I have found is that everyone's human consciousness, everyone's higher consciousness is different, and what you'll find it's whatever their personality is, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And the Soul Project is based on that, and I'd like to start getting people's what I find at the moment. The internet is brilliant. It's wonderful to a degree, and we get to hear about all these different stories. But what I find is missing is people tell their story and say, this is what happened to me. I died, I went through the light, I saw this, I saw that, I saw this, I saw that. And that's it. So what I want to do is I want to say, well, why did you see that? Why do you think you saw that? Why do you think you were told that? And actually explore the actual death experiences of other people to see where the connection is between their physical lives and their spiritual lives, and see how that connection can then bring about greater understanding for their higher consciousness. Because it's all about self, it's all about yourself. So that's what I'm hoping. But I need to get organized. I need to stop being a Scouser and get organized. It's just
Well, it's interesting because I've had a lot of guests on my show that either experience a near-death experience and or experienced what they refer to as a distressing near-death experience. I had a couple of interviews with somebody that literally felt as though she was taken to hell and brought that information that she learned from that experience, and of course changed her life, wrote books about it, and is teaching people about that from her experience. But it's such a fascinating field. But I know we're looking at the time here. Can you, I know maybe you got it across, but just for those people that are a little confused between what a near-death experience is versus an actual death experience, how would you define the difference there?
Well, there's no real difference. What it is just terminology, because near-death experience was coined by Raymond Moody.
Raymond Moody, yeah.
In, I believe, 1975.
Yeah.
And over the years, you will find that people use the term near-death experience when they almost have an accident. It's thrown around a lot more than what it was. So because it's used for other explanations, because it's used for other things, we need to contain the difference between almost having an accident, almost dying, and actually having an actual death experience. And I believe it's Sam Parnier as well. He also calls them actual death experiences, because the brain, you can't be near to death and have one of these experiences. You have to flatline, you have to shut down. And then, so during those moments of shutting down and flatlining and your consciousness separation, that is, you are experiencing basically death. Your body is shut down. So especially for the PhD and stuff like that, and for a medical point of view, I refer to them as actual death experiences, so we can be clear that they don't, like, I'm not awake when these happen. I have to go unconscious first for me to have an experience, and I can't produce one through meditation. That's more astral traveling, that is. So it is a medical condition in my case, because of the brain injury, if you know what I mean. Even though I was having them before, the actual understanding of the consciousness only happened because of the brain injury. Yeah, because it started to heal the injury. So it is basically, I mean, people can still call them near-death experiences, but I don't call them that. And I know a few people who don't. So we're still talking about leaving the body, going through the light, meeting relatives who have passed on. We're still talking about the same thing, the same experience.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That's kind of what I thought, but I just wanted to clarify it.
Yeah.
So we only have 2 minutes. So first of all, give us one thing that you hope people get from all that you went through, or the connection to your higher consciousness. What would be the one wonderful thing you could tell people?
I hope people get love.
Yeah.
Love.
That's what it's about. That's what it's about.
That's why we are that love.
Yeah.
And I hope people can start to realize how beautiful they are, because they are. You know,
Yeah.
they sort out their flaws and stuff like that. They can do that in their own time, and they can be totally in control of that. But as an existence, as a creation, we are incredible. We have the ability to heal the world. We have the ability to heal each other. And that's what I hope that people will understand from my experiences.
Yes. And really fast, how do people find you? How do they read about you? Your websites? How do they connect?
They can learn about the research on the higher consciousness and what happened to me through, I believe he put up a website, did he?
Yeah, it is up there. Yeah.
And they can learn about the children's books and everything. Do you want me to put that one up, or?
Oh, just tell us. Yeah.
Okay, it's snowmites.com.
Mm-hmm.
So that's up there. And then the other thing that I've been doing is, as you know, I created a publishing house. And what I'm sort of reaching towards is publishing people like you,
Yes.
who have that same message. We are the love. So
Gotta go.
if you have a book that says we are the love, that you think this book will help heal people, then by all means get in touch.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Right.
Good work. Thank
Stay
you.
safe.